Hi, this is Lori McCabe from SMB Group, and I'm excited to be here at Zoho's first ever SMZ Summit for small businesses, where we're learning all about the different solutions that Zoho has for small business customers. And now I have the opportunity to go one on one with Taylor Backman, who is going to share with us some information and insight into Zoho's artificial intelligence or our AI strategy and really what that means for small business customers. And Taylor, we all know that AI is like the buzzword of the day, and the innovation is happening so fast, and vendors are all hustling to, kind of outdo themselves on this AI front. All kinds of announcements and new products and features. So let's just start at the high level. Can you tell us a little bit about Zoho's overall AI strategy as customers?
Yeah, so absolutely, and it's great to talk to you. Would say that, like, just to put a name on kind of the way we've been thinking about AI is being AI realists, right? And trying to kind of cut through a lot of the hype that we've been hearing and try to figure out how we can use AI as this new emerging technology to add value to our products, to solve problems for our customers. Zoho has a lot of small business customers. That's the
Mhm.
majority of ours. So if we can align that, then we'll definitely have a strong product or outcome essentially for small businesses. But right now, the way that we're approaching this is we've put, tens of millions of dollars into our data centers working with NVIDIA to build on their platform. We've built our own LLM that has a few different versions. But instead of going really big, like the really massive ChatGPT style models, we've experimented with much smaller models that are more purpose-built, that allow us to solve particular problems that we see small businesses having. So for example, being able to deal with certain kinds of like unstructured data that might be accumulating in a business, like a bunch of call recordings that you need to listen to figure out what's going on with your sales team or your support team, right? So our approach has been, let's be more realistic, let's cut through the hype, let's definitely invest for the long term, but let's figure out how we can start building value in the products now rather than making this a big promise that we're going to have a hard time delivering on.
Yeah, well, cutting through the hype is certainly a good thing when
Yeah.
it comes to AI. There's no question about that. And we know from our latest SMB group survey that the interest in AI among small businesses is really rising. We did a survey in 2023, and I think it was about 29% of the respondents said they were using AI or experimenting with AI, and that's now over 50%. So that trend I think is moving in a good direction. But on the flip side, there's still a lot of obstacles. And a couple of the big ones are they don't understand the relevant use cases for their business. Like, why would I use it? How would I benefit? And then just that they don't have much experience or knowledge about AI. So it's like the fear of the unknown.
Sure.
So can you talk maybe a little bit about how Zoho's addressing those problems?
Yeah, I think one of the major obstacles is that when you have all of these stories going on about this new technology, it really warps kind of the reality of what's even possible right now. And people are thinking about this big technology that they have to adopt, and it's going to be this huge undertaking. When in reality, right now, we're just not there. So it's actually not as daunting as it looks if we hopefully have like a good kind of AI realist strategy that we're working on. Where, for example, like I said, something like being able to take call recordings and being able to say, from a bunch of customer interviews you've done, find me good testimonial quotes for my website. And it produces those quotes for you. So that way you can then take those, put them in an email to the relevant customer, get them to sign off, and now you've saved someone on your team hours of work that you were able to accomplish in about 10 minutes, right?
Yeah, fast
So
benefit.
exactly. So being able to build those kinds of features and capabilities is really, I think, the key to getting past the hype and actually allowing people to adopt things in a reasonable way that does add value, but is not necessarily like feeding into this apocalyptic scenario of we have to fundamentally reimagine our business.
Before we get off the apocalyptic
Yeah.
scenario, just one more kind of question along those lines. So
Yeah.
another big concern
Yeah.
that a lot of our survey respondents have is not only about privacy and security with AI, which is certainly, something that people worry about, but also hallucinations and just getting inaccurate data. And then they're either using that inaccurate data, in certain situations to make decisions that may not be the best decisions. So I'm wondering, with those being definite gotchas with AI, what Zoho doing to address those so people can have more peace of mind that the data is going to, be protected and that it's going to be delivering the accurate kind of information they want.
Yeah. So I think like taking a couple parts of that. First is like a question around like security and privacy. The first thing that Zoho's doing is by just having our own LLM, by having our own AI stack that we are building on and that we own, we are going to be enforcing all of the rigorous security and privacy standards that we've set for ourselves. The nice thing about that is with the way that we're approaching things, I would say you can feel confident putting data into this kind of AI or LLM that Zoho's doing because we have absolutely no history of ever using data for anything that a customer gives us, right? We've never sold ads, we've never sold customer data. It's your
The data come from in the LLM that
well, what I mean is that, or I mean,
the
easiest to
LLM, yeah, to train.
we've created our own, data sets and everything like that that we've been able to train off of. But in general, I guess the point is that like one fear I would say is that you have an app like a word processor or a spreadsheet and you're working in it and then you copy a bunch of rows and cells or a bunch of data and you dump it into an LLM for something and now that's a data breach, right?
Right.
So if we have a strong, private, secure service that Zoho is building, you can feel more confident putting things into that rather than it going to a different source.
And then
Something.
away the crown jewel or
Right.
something like
Right.
that.
So that's one thing that I think is important around privacy and security, making sure that you're just using a private and secure platform for your AI use. The second thing, which is around hallucinations, unfortunately, this is, I think, in some ways the limitation of what LLMs are because they are fundamentally really, really amazing at predicting the next word, right? That's fundamentally kind of what they do. There are no built-in validation mechanisms to make sure that it's actually giving the right
Yeah.
information. So the way that we are going to approach that is one, we're always going to caution every organization that, hey, if you're using this, we're not claiming this is omnipotent, we're not claiming it's perfect. Think of this as another person on your team contributing an idea, doing some work. Sometimes we need to double check our colleagues' work. Sometimes we need to make sure that we have this number correct. We need to run it again before we actually go with it. That's just the kind of due diligence of working on a team. And the AI shouldn't be seen as an infallible source of information.
Right.
So that's
Like a human.
exactly. And so that's the first thing I would say. But then the second is when we think about AI agents, we often think about it in terms of humans interacting with the computer, right? Well, we think that there's going to be quite a few AI agents that are just on the back end interacting with each other. And that may be where we can create these validation agents that ensure that the answer that comes out
Yeah.
can actually do the double check to make sure.
Yeah.
So it'll be building up these kinds of very sort of unsexy back end things for, again, these very specific business processes where agents or LLMs, for example, are not the big omnipotent LLM, but are working off closed data sets that maybe you've provided it.
Yeah.
So all of these things I think will go into hopefully addressing the hallucination.
Yeah, and it might just be helpful because we do also know from our study that even though small businesses are getting more familiar and feel more comfortable, at least having some general understanding of AI, let's face it, none of us really gets everything about it, but the agentic AI or the agents are still a lot of I don't know what that means. I mean, they don't get it at all. So how does Zoho define agentic AI or AI agents or whatever term you want to use?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, right now, I think that we see it as an AI or a model that has been put together with a particular job, right?
Okay.
So if you have an AI agent that's a chatbot that's doing customer support, that would be the idea of a, AI support agent, right? As we have found though, these are not really the best to doing customer support. It turns out people do a lot of things that the AI support LLM things aren't able to do, right? So that is, I think, kind of the balance with some of these things is knowing their limitations and how we can deploy them to get more use. One example that we have in Zoho, just as an example, I guess, is our Ask Zia feature, which is our Zoho Intelligent Assistant. We have trained it on all of Zoho's knowledge base, so all of our support documentation. And now we have that available in the product so that a small business customer can ask it questions like it's a support agent. But meanwhile, we are going to continue to invest heavily in human support agents that are here in the United States to help you as well.
Right.
But the main thing is providing that kind of as an extra tool.
Right, and especially for, like, the low-hanging fruit questions that are relatively rote and standard.
Yeah.
On the plus side, we have seen, in this survey that across the board, regardless of the business function we ask about, small businesses are pretty bullish about the potential of AI to provide significant benefit to their business. I think only 2% said it would provide no benefit. Um, and so I'm curious, where do you see your customers to date? And I know we're really early going, but where are you hearing like, "Oh my god, this is great. This is really helping me." What are the big aha moments for them with AI?
There's a few, and I think one of our approaches is that they're benefiting from AI and they might not even know that they're benefiting from it right now because like I said, we're trying to apply AI in these specific use cases so we can actually create value rather than say, hey, we've completed the general AI intelligence that'll do everything for you, right?
Boil the ocean.
So exactly. So one example is like receipt scanning, right? Being able to scan a receipt into a system and understand what is going on with this receipt, pulling the data out of that, assigning it to the proper fields and making it usable for you is not very easy. There's a lot of different kinds of receipt that have a whole bunch of different formatting, and you add in different languages, and it's different decimal points for different currencies. It's a tough problem. That's something that we're doing that is currently delivering a lot of value through our expense management tool. Whether or not people see that as, oh wow, the LLM is finally working for me, I don't know, but it definitely is providing a lot of value. Another example that would be maybe even more removed from what people would be aware of, but are still going to provide a lot of value, is the fraud prevention that is happening in our Zoho payments system. So there's a bunch of cool AI things that are happening in the background there to make sure that there are no fraudulent payments that are coming from, any part of that process, whether it is when like a credit card is being used all the way to some kind of banking issue. So that is, I'd say, another like clear example of where like AI is currently operating in Zoho that is delivering a lot of value.
I mean, there's so many potential use cases for it. So how, in general, kind of when you look across this infinite array of places where you can embed AI to improve a certain function, how do you decide? How do you prioritize?
The structure of Zoho is kind of the answer to this, where we have a lot of product teams that operate almost autonomously at times and build their own products, but then they plug into centralized frameworks that we use to basically deploy our services. We then also have a medium long-term labs team that works on these kinds of really deep, complicated technical problems. once they make advancements and then they show the teams, hey, this is something we can do now, the product managers of various pieces of software, various applications that we do will look at that and will determine based on their roadmap, based on what they're hearing from their customers, what do we want to take from that to implement into our product. So there's no one person that makes the decision, and everything can be a lot more responsive to the market. Our product teams are able to focus on the product, and our technology teams are able to work on, creating these new LLMs, for example, that can be deployed in different situations.
Right, and so I like the examples you gave with the receipt scanning and the fraud, because those seem to be you're selecting ones that will have a pretty immediate impact, that people can see right away.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, obviously, small businesses, not always, but a lot of times pretty cost constrained. So the other question to understand is, does Zoho charge? If you're using a Zoho application and you want to take advantage of the new AI feature, some vendors charge for that. Does Zoho charge for that? Is it in there and part of the solution? How do you look at that?
So Zoho does have different like pricing tiers for different products, and we have a bunch of different ways that you can consume Zoho applications. As of now, we have not raised the price because of any AI features, and we have not had any like AI add-on that you have to add. Our philosophy is that we should be able to do everything as efficiently as possible from our side as a software company to try to pass on savings and pass on efficiencies to our customers. So one way that we're doing that is by owning the stack, by developing our own LLMs and really taking control of this technology ourselves. And then two,
So that will having your own LLM will help you focus all that processing on the right stuff as opposed to
yeah,
scraping the entire internet.
yeah, and
So it saves money.
totally. And we've always operated our own data centers. So we make those optimizations on the infrastructure level of
Right.
our business rather than paying, say, Amazon or Google to help us with this, which would get very expensive.
Eliminate the middleman there.
Exactly. So we try to do as much as we can to pass those savings on. But then an additional point is, since we are ourselves trying to be realistic about where things are at with AI, we haven't made these massive capital expenditures basically to build whole new data centers and just go crazy where, all of a sudden now you have all this money you've sunk into it and you have to recoup that,
Right.
right?
We hear about that all the time.
Exactly.
Financial news.
Exactly. And that's where price increases come from, right? So by trying to be restrained, by trying to cut through the hype, by trying to think about what are the pain points that our customers have and what are the features or capabilities that we need to build, whether it's AI or not AI,
Right.
that allows us to build a product that people will pay for, and it keeps us from investing too heavily in a technology that may or may not produce tons of value right now
Yeah.
and scale in a very controlled way.
Yeah, in New England, we say, "Don't get out in front of your ski."
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah. And I think honestly, that's one of the big issues with some of the AI stuff right now is, you know, a really good use case for AI right now is expense management policy violations. Being able to try to understand when an expense report has been submitted, that it has actually broken a rule that you've set, right? The thing is, you can't have a $100 billion company on that feature, right? But you can have this as a nice, solid new capability in expense management software that you're going to keep paying the same price for. And that's the approach really that we're
Yeah.
trying to take.
That makes a lot of sense. So, as we said already, this is all happening at warp speed, everything with AI. And we also know a lot of small business and people in general are just kind of overwhelmed by this rapid innovation all the time. There's new stuff, everybody's always announcing it. What is the best way for small businesses to kind of stay in the loop and be able to discover what's relevant for them in the Zoho platform with AI and, what they might want to kick the tires on? How do they kind of stay ahead of the curve on all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, from the Zoho context, we're trying to do a lot more work with just letting people know what we can do with what you can do with our platform generally, and then with AI things specifically. Last week, for example, I filmed 11, 12 videos on AI capabilities. So, and that'll be going on YouTube. So we'll be making that a regular project where we're constantly giving these updates to
So like
our
Zoho
customers.
TV or something?
Well, whatever we want to
Okay.
call that, yeah. But yeah, I mean, trying to just make sure people are aware of what Zoho's doing. I would say, you know, we have a lot of products that we're always working on. We have whole new products that we're talking about releasing today that are not actually AI products. So
Right. You
it's
said
always this
that.
struggle of trying to, you know, help people understand what's going on. But we're going to do our very best to keep doing that. And as I mentioned earlier, we have this really nifty new use for AI, which is train it on all of our knowledge base articles so it can help people answer these questions as they find themselves needing a new tool. Yeah, hey, I'm working on a thing. I realize I should probably send an email campaign. Hey, does Zoho have
Yeah.
email marketing software? How do I do that? Does that integrate with my CRM? And now they're getting that kind of value. We're seeing the value, and you know, there's still, of course, going to be a person that will help you as well.
Yeah. Well, this has been great, Jill. I
Thank you
really
so much.
appreciate it, and I think that the Zoho approach of looking at this both holistically and pragmatically is aligned well with small businesses. So we'll see how this whole thing evolves. I am sure in 6 months we'll have all kinds of new stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I'll
But
feel really silly if in 6 months I've been replaced by an AI, but I don't think that's going to happen.
you need to.
Yeah.
And Michael, you'll be sitting here looking at a couple little computers.
Yeah, there'll be like one of those Boston Dynamics robots floating around in the
Exactly.
background. Yeah.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
this has been great. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank you so much, Lori. Appreciate it.